Welcome to my channel. I was listening to the Richroll podcast today, a podcast I listen to often, and heard a guest named Chip Conley talk about aging in midlife. I heard so many good nuggets in that podcast that I wanted to talk about today on my channel. But first, my name is Susan. I'm in my 60s. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Please subscribe. It will really help me grow my channel, and I'm really excited about it. So on to this topic of midlife and aging. So many people, when they're over 50, stop growing, and Chip Conley has developed a business and a mission company called Modern Elder Academy, or MEA. He is an expert on aging or midlife and in our modern era, and talks about how starting something new, learning something new can be so good for us as we age. It used to be that crisis was a definition of midlife, like midlife crisis. But Conley says we're still making sense of midlife, and the term midlife has changed so much over the years. At one point, we were only living to our 30s and 40s 100 years ago, as opposed to now we're living to our 70s or 80s. Conley says it's not a crisis, it's a chrysalis, which I thought was really interesting and insightful. When we get to midlife, we often feel less than and irrelevant. Brene Brown talks about a midlife unraveling rather than crisis. Conley talked about how she was talking with him about how we're so wound up in our younger years and then we unravel as we get older. Midlife, sometimes our expectations of our lives diminish and we let go more of those expectations because we've already either accomplished things or we don't have as many things that we want to accomplish in our later years. I've really felt this myself. I was always a striver and felt like I needed to be the best at everything I did or rise to the top and get the promotion and that kind of thing. And now, even though I'm trying new things and growing, I think, I just don't have to push to be the highest achiever that I did at one point. Another interesting point that Conley made was that sometimes in midlife affects men more or in a different way than it affects women, because for many, especially white males, they've never had to deal with an ism as much as women often do. In midlife, that would be ageism, and that really can come into play in midlife for men. Women on the other side have always dealt with being kind of a minority to men and have had to deal with looking younger than their age or other things that women have a tendency to go through in our society. Conley also talked about how men have to deal with less virility, whereas women have to deal with menopause and momhood in their younger years, obviously. But men overall don't have to go through as much as women do their whole lives when it comes to isms. I've definitely dealt with ageism. I think, though, luckily I still work and feel like my experience is valued at my job working with the homeless population. But I have felt ageism at work at times also. One example is at work, we have a softball team, and I've been told that they didn't want me to play a certain position because they were concerned that I would get hurt, which in my mind is nothing I would think about related to my age. And of course, no one wants to get hurt, but I don't feel like because of my age, I shouldn't do something because I might get hurt. That was a hard pill to swallow and something I needed to deal with. 70% of people over 70 are women, and women have to deal with menopause and being caretakers, etc. So women often have an equally difficult time of aging. In the movie Showgirl, Pamela Anderson, the main character and showgirl for her whole she was a showgirl for her whole career. She struggled with her aging self in a younger person's profession. It was heartbreaking to see her be less wanted in that profession because of her age, even though she had the experience that none of the younger people had, and she was still beautiful, in my view. How we view aging can be a big predictor for our happiness and how long we live. In other countries, they often view aging in a more positive way, and so they're able to age more gracefully and happily than we are in the United States, with our focus on anti-aging often. As we age, we become more aware of our mortality. I know I certainly have. I've really thought a lot about how much longer I have to live and feeling like it's not long enough, which is hard. I suppose that's probably part of aging. What is our relationship with death, and does our religion or our beliefs tell us that we're coming back after death? How we think about that and our beliefs can influence our feelings about dying. Some people, including me, have written our own eulogy, and this exercise really helps us with getting clear on what our life has been about and what you would say about your life after you've gone. What impact have you had on others? In my mind is the question we sometimes think about as we get older. And do we feel good about the impact that we've had? A couple of things that have happened in the last year of my life are, one is my sister suffered a traumatic brain injury, and she is the closest person to me in my life as far as a confidant. So that has been difficult, and I've still been working through that. But also just feeling like I want to spend time with my grandchildren as much as I can and family, but I also want to live my own life and travel, which would take me away from them. Conley talked about Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl said in his book that meaning is the fuel of life. I've never felt happier than when I'm helping others. Also, helping others can have a downside, though. If you don't take care of yourself, and as a woman, we all struggle with that. What we want in life is meaning, happiness, purpose, love, and satisfaction. As Richroll talks about in his podcast, he says all the getting of things earlier in life doesn't always really make us happy. One of the characters in The White Lotus struggled with his identity and being solely pretty much based on his income and his ability to provide as a father and husband, and expectation that was built around that role, as opposed to his inner worth, which I think he learned during the course of the show. The character learned that your inner worth is much more important than money when he was faced with losing it all. That really brought to light what's important in life for me. I've never been happier in my work than I am now, or have been in the last 10 years doing the work that I'm doing, helping others. I talked with a group of Oregon State University students recently, and they're interested in the career that I'm in. And I talked about loving what you do as being very important in life, since they were all probably between 18 and 22. And many of them said their parents are discouraging them from going into a profession of helping people like social work because they won't make enough money, which I just find so disappointing in this day and age. One student even went as far as to say that working in service to other people is her passion, and it's something that she really wants to do, and her parents are still against her going into social work as a profession because she won't make enough money. In my opinion, there's nothing more important than being happy in your work, and especially if you get started before you have kids and responsibilities, then you don't have to feel tied to a job that you don't love because of responsibility and earning a higher income. Arthur Brooks talks about faith, family, and friends when he talks about happiness, especially in later years. Chip Conley said we should add frolicking, or in my mind, play, which is so true. And this is all through life, and especially in midlife and older. Is there something that you want to do that you haven't done or haven't tried? Now is the time to try those things in midlife or older and live your life to the fullest. Another one of the things that Conley talked about in this podcast was trying something new that you're not comfortable with and doing it in public. So either as a group or something like what I'm doing, starting a YouTube channel at age 67. He talks about doing something that could be embarrassing, that you could be embarrassed about, something new that you're learning, not something that you've always done and that you're good at. So I can definitely relate to that with my channel because it hasn't been easy and I'm definitely learning. Maybe that's where the term fake it till you make it comes from. I've done a lot of faking it till I make it in my life. Routine, habits and ritual. Habits help you stay on track with something. Ritual gives you the opportunity to open up to new things. I had a kind of aha moment when I heard this, because when we were younger, we're sticking to a routine as people who are working full-time, going to school, raising kids, etc. But as we age, and maybe as we retire, we have more time for a new ritual and learning new things. One of the things that I've been working on is meditation in my mind as a ritual. This may sound cliche, but the older I get, the more I discover who I really am. And I like having the time to discover that as I get older. Thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment and let me know what you're doing that is new and what you're learning and your thoughts on aging or midlife. Please also like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.